Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Quite the quote, to be sure. I didn't take the time to look up who that is. I feel like it's Blake, but maybe I'm wrong. We're going to go into Twilight language, take it to the next level. Uh, when I was young, I was a martial artist, and anytime we walked into the dojo, we had to bow. To get into the dojo, you had to bow to get out of the dojo. And all my life, I had no idea what that was all about. What are we taking the time to give our vigilance to habitually? And it wasn't until after I watched Seven Samurai and I saw that initiation ritual of holding a stick over the doorway and inviting a samurai into council that I realized that's liminal pareidolia, or heightened awareness in transitional spaces. Pareidolia might be a bit of a stretch on that concept, but it's everything is everything. And when you're moving between ideas, it's good to have your wits about you. So, Twilight language. Many, many words for this concept. It is the idea that there is more being said than what you're offered to accept on the first glance. It is much like Black's Law, that words have many meanings. Some words have 8 meanings, and it is on you to decide which of the 8 meanings you are going to apply to the concept that you're dealing with. Some people say that Latin is very special because the words only have one meaning, and English has many angles to the concepts that are being spoken. This word appendix, X is mutable, changeable, an addition to. And, we have an appendix, it's a subtext in a book, an amendment, an addendum. But we have an appendix in our intestines, In that appendix, it's an organ that we don't use anymore. It's rendered useless. It's quite the idea, people say that the pinky is an organ we may not need, and someday we'll only have 4 fingers. These concepts are mind-boggling to just sit and meditate on. There's a term that they don't use very much anymore. Men of towardness. Men of towardness were often well-read gentlemen, often in certain schools of thought. But I posit that they may have been men of 2-word gnosis. They may have known all the Codex Biparius, and they may have been able to sit in each other's presence and speak right over the heads of everyone around. And so we'll go through a list of words, all of which, are sometimes hard to find these definitions. Sometimes they're just not written; they're implied. The word louche. A lot of people talk about louche. We're going to have a revolution. And that actually has to do with absinthe and removing the oils from a drink. There's an alchemical process to remove the oils, But one very easy translation would be loss, spiritual loss, And there's a lot of presumptions go into this word louche. It was in a movie recently with Mel Gibson where he is writing a dictionary, and he and a cohort are sharing their favorite words with each other, and Mel Gibson says this is one of his favorite words. It's very, very telling that was brought to the collective conscious recently. put right in our face. Feeling has the word fee, a price. It also, Fe is iron. Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Iron is used to keep spirits away. That goes back to Druidic lore. So decide, to make a decision. That's a presumption in itself, that you even have to decide. Often we're dealing with this dual meaning, but we also, you're being decided. When you agree to even make a choice, you are losing ground. And in the context of the aura, that's a very telling word. Reside. Where do you reside? In a court of law, where the judge has that hexen hammer, the witch's hammer, HH88, it's Mercury, that he asks where you reside. Well, your reside is something you do to a captured ship. Once you take a ship, you will reside it and put your logo on it. Things to think about, you don't always have to decide. Maintain your stoicism. Prison, pry, as in take, the sign, your sun, the sun. They take away the sun when you go into a prison. And sometimes you can live in a mental prison without even being stuck in a cage. A lot to think about there. Epigenetic. Epi means skin. Genetic. This is the skin of those who came before you. Trauma of the ancestors is passed down. It's passed down even if you don't get the birthright of kings. We do have memory from those who came before us, and it's for some it's harder to access, for some it's not so hard. Occult. Here's that O. Call. O call, cross. Zero, call, crossed over. Ak, alt, a higher vision, higher perspective. Ak is eyeball, the third eye. We're talking about the third eye. Ak is also ate, other, alternative. They ate something else. They didn't have the communion. Sin, standing in negative. We talked about this already. Black's Law defines a person as a monster. And when you go in and assume a persona, you will be deemed a monster, incomplete being. A lot to think about there. Re-sun. They are reassigning the way you think. Reassign your thinking. There's a good word in German. Verstehen is to understand, but Vernunft is to overstand, is reasoning. Understanding, Verstehen, is to stand under. Vernunft is reason, to know the full reasoning, the full story. Esquire, here we're going to go into court, cut. Esquire is a shield bearer. We're talking about your defenses, your aura, your presence, your capacitance. They're taking it away. They're going to hold it for you. And in Norse mythology, a shield bearer, a shield maiden was your wife going into battle with you, and she'd end up carrying you home on your shield when you died. So, Esquire is a shield bearer. A page holds the sword, and that's something to think about when you use two-dimensional page of paperwork. But Esquire is a shield bearer. They're rendering you defenseless when they take your shield away. A barrister. Barrister is a reference to the bear star, Ursa Majora. There is a Celtic tradition of capturing a wild animal, often a bear or a wolf. They would tie it down in the center of the village, and they would play music and have a celebration, and everybody would take their turns whispering their confessions into the ear of the bear. And then they would all kill it and they would all eat it. They would have a communion. And their sins would lift up into the heavens and go to the bear star, Ursa Majora. And this is the Nazi Gamatra cross, the swastika, Ursa Majora. Virgil spoke to Dante in the Divine Comedy. Virgil spoke for Dante in the Divine Comedy when they approached the Greeks. And the reason that he spoke for him, he said, I'll do the talking, lest your words offend the Greeks. And he doesn't do much explaining. It's a cultural, kind of a cultural norm of the time that the Greeks would be offended by English language. And some things to think about why that might be. Greek language had no spacing in between their writing. They didn't have spaces, they didn't have stops, they didn't have paragraph breaks. A lot to think about. Their sentences were all run on. It's very intimidating to even look at the Greek language. And another point about the Greeks, the concept of zero was forbidden. It was banned. They did not believe in a nothing. All of what I just said has much weight when you consider the presence of your higher being, the higher self, the birthright of kings. Much love, y'all. Respect.